Welcome to the Lone Pine Real Estate Company podcast and radio show, creating solutions to navigating tricky real estate waters. I'm your host, Rachel Umstead, broker and owner of Lone Pine Real Estate Company here in Midcoast, Maine. Real estate isn't always smooth sailing. Whether you're buying, selling, investing, or just trying to figure out your next step, the path can feel overwhelming. That's why this podcast exists, to bring clarity, confidence, and creative solutions to the complex world of real estate. And fun. We all want fun. Each episode will dive into real stories, practical solutions, and expert insight to help you make smart decisions and avoid common pitfalls, all while staying grounded in what matters most: your goals, your future, and your peace of mind. Please note this podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, financial, or real estate advice. Listening to this episode does not create a client-agent relationship. Always consult with a licensed professional about your specific situation. So grab your coffee and join me under the pine. Together we'll chart the course. Welcome back to the Lone Pine Real Estate Company podcast and radio show. I'm your host, Rachel Umstead. I'm the founder and owner of Lone Pine Real Estate Company, and we're here today at Morgan's Mill with Richard Morgan, who's the owner of Morgan's Mills and the founder, and we're going to dive deeply into the history of this property and who would be the next best steward of it. So welcome, Richard.
Thank you.
Richard's my neighbor too. So I've known Richard almost my entire life.
Rachel lives across the street.
So Richard, please could you share with us the history of Morgan's Mills before you owned it? Like how did this come into existence?
If you look into Wikipedia, and there's several other places, the original name for this was Lerman's Mill, Lermonds Mill. And that is because in 1797, John Lerman came up from Thomaston, where his father had a mill on the Oyster River. And if you look in Sibley's history or Horse and Buggy Days, I'm not sure which one, is the Union history books, it says that he came up with, on a barge that they used for all kinds of transport at that time, with 2 weeks worth of supplies and a pair of oxen. And they would offload in the Union Common area and come over here, and he homesteaded this village. He had his barn over where the Grange Hall is, his house across the street here, and he built the mill that's on the east side of the stream, only that one. And he died about 1805, but he first built a sawmill up on Lerman Pond Dam, which is just across the top of my pond right here. I have a 2-acre mill pond, and it's a big system. It's 700 acres of water, a 2-acre mill pond, 150 acres of Lerman Pond, and then 550 acres of Alford Lake up in Hope. And it's quite an interesting thing. He rerouted the water coming out of Alford Lake so that it wouldn't come down the Daniels Brook. It would come through Lerman Pond so he could use it. Hey, you didn't know that, did you?
You told me before, so I did know it.
Okay. Anyway, it was just that mill on the other side. No buildings over here, and no building connecting the two. And then there's different numbers that come up, but 1835 is the number I remember. A guy named Lewis Andrews came to town, and he built 3 things. He built 2 houses on the opposite side of the street, the one here and the one here.
The 2 capes?
What?
The 2 capes?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, economies and
Dan,
so,
yeah.
right. Dan Poisson. And they're mirror images of each other. Architecture since has changed them. There's no barn over here anymore. But he also built the building that's in front of this one on the west side of the water being right down here. And the original building may have had a water wheel. I saw one reference to that, but there's nothing left of it. And in about 1825, a salesman for turbine company came through this area and sold a turbine to the people running that mill. John Lerman was dead by 1805, but his family continued it. And
Excuse me for 1 second. Were they running it then still as like a sawmill?
yes, it's called hydromechanical. That's when there's no electricity involved. It's belts and pulleys,
Okay.
all right? And we still had that here when I came. There was a big shaft running through the mill down below in the lower decks with great big pulleys taking the power upstairs to power what eventually came to that building. That building was built as a clothing works and like a sail loft. It doesn't have any posting in the middle of the second floor, so they could lay out cloth to make clothing.
Wow.
And it also was a chair factory, and I have several of the parts of the chairs left over, kicking around. But in the late 1800s, a family called the Dornans, Dornans, came and bought the facility on this side of the river, and they eventually put a connection between the two buildings up over the water, and that still exists. I raised it a whole story when I came here, but yeah, that building is built with a cement floor on corrugated steel arches.
Did they build it back then like that?
I don't know when they built it,
Okay.
but I know that the dams are dated 1919. The one at the mill, the one at Lermond, and the one at Alford. All the concrete came in at 1919. Originally, when a dam was built, it's called a crib dam. They'd make a log cabin, sort of a crib, and put rocks in the middle of it, and that was the dam.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't waterproof until they put boards on the front of it on the crib.
Okay.
That's how they used to make them.
Okay.
But in 1919, they took that away and put a cement dam there, here, and up in Hope for Alford Dam. And they ran that business here for making monuments, granite monuments. There used to be a great big derrick on the other side where they could unload a big block of granite off of a truck and put it on a little carriage that went all the way down between the three buildings. And they bring it in here. And this room that we're in was called the Stone Shed. It was built for finishing headstones. And there's lots of pictures in the archives of Union of all the headstones sitting out in the front yard here. You know, you've seen people selling headstones. They
Right.
always have them in the front yards, right?
Yeah.
Same here. And
There's remnants of them all over here.
what's that?
Aren't there remnants of them all over here?
Well, there are pieces of them, yeah, right. And they ran that till 1964, and they closed it down, and it was sold to what I'd call a flipper, someone who didn't really want to use it. He bought it to sell it,
Okay.
and that happened 2 times. And I came to town after looking for a restorable small hydropower mill.
And at that point, it was a hydropower mill.
Yes, it always has been
Mm-hmm.
since John Lerman.
Okay.
Hydropower means water turning power, see? And the fascinating thing about hydropower is that it is carbon free, okay? The sun shines on water and evaporates it, and it goes up and rains into lakes high up, and that water has to get back to the ocean. And when it does, it gives back its energy one way or another, either just by, foam or flood water or whatever. But when you can put it through a water wheel or a turbine and take the power out, you're not impacting the carbon footprint of the planet at all.
It's amazing.
That's real good. I come from Rhode Island, grew up down there in the 50s, and there was one particular small mill just like this one, and it was a grist mill. And it was on a small pond, and they weren't using the hydropower anymore, but it was still there, so I could go inspect it and so on. And there's so many of them. All of New England was developed by hydropower. the Knox Woolen Mill in Camden,
It gave life to the whole community.
and work
Mm-hmm.
for everybody, all up and down from here, all the way down through Massachusetts. Great big brick buildings for making cloth, clothing works, all powered by water. The Bates Mill in Lewiston,
The Freedom Mill.
and well, the Freedom Mill is another small one like this.
Right.
Yep. But I was just fascinated by the idea of finding a small restorable water-powered mill because I could use it to power whatever I wanted. And I bought this place in '78 after looking all over the United States for one. And I found this listed on a realtor's wall down in Waldoboro, and came up and looked at it, and I said, I got to have that. And found a house a quarter mile down the road, and we settled down here, and I've been here for 47 years.
That's amazing. It's a year less than I've been alive.
See?
Yeah.
Right.
So what was the condition of the mill when you bought it?
It was not too different than it is now. You'll see that there's still a lot of rough stuff on the walls of the mill, but I have put second floors in this building, all of the buildings, and built an office on the side of the building over there, and so that anybody can move along the floors without having to go up or down steps. And cement floor here, real strong. We had a flood here in 2023, 2 years ago, that was 7 inches of rain in the same night. And as Rachel well knows, because she did a GoFundMe for restoring it, the water was up this high. You can see it on the post right there. I don't know if you can see it with that camera, but the water was this high in this room.
It was
right?
it was incredible and horrific at the same time.
Oh yeah. And
Testament to the way this place was built, because any other building it would have taken down.
well, that's true of the front building in particular because of the concrete on the iron. But I built this pretty strong too, yes. But this is the flour mill. You can't see it with the camera, but there's a big granite flour mill stone machine right there, and a 15 horse electric motor, right? And it was this deep underwater. And you'd think, oh yeah, throw it away and start all over again. But I'm a machinist as well as a mechanic, and I know that a TEFC motor, totally enclosed, fan cooled, is safe from water. So I just let it dry out for 2 or 3 weeks, push the button, and boom,
Amazing.
Started right up.
So when did you? Okay, so I want to hear about two more things and probably others too. But you mentioned the hydropower, and I know that you've told me, but other people don't know what this mill can power as far as.
Oh, yeah. Well, mechanically or electrically?
Electric or both. Like what would be the advantage of someone buying the mill because of the hydropower?
Well, I imagine they'd just do hydroelectric now because the electricity will power whatever you want.
And other houses, right?
Yes, it certainly can. I have a relationship with CMP, so-called, supposedly Central Maine Power, but when the government changed the rules a few years ago, they made them sell all their generation assets, and they kept only their distribution assets. And first it went to Florida Power and Light, and now CMP is owned in Spain.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And now a really interesting thing, one time when I went up to the offices of CMP in Augusta, I went in the lobby and I looked at this wonderful diorama that they've got, like a museum of the beginnings of CMP. And the guy who started it had a generator, a hydro generator, that was smaller than mine.
Wow.
This is 30 kilowatts of electricity that I make right here. And his was a 25 horsepower kilowatt generator.
Wow. So this right now powers 3 houses in the mill?
It does. It could be more. And what she's talking about is CMP, back when Jimmy Carter started the Department of Energy, they paid independent power producers top dollar for the most expensive power in the year for powering you know air conditioners in August. But when Jimmy Carter left office, that was the end of that. And when the Republicans took over, they changed it so that we don't get paid for power anymore. I used to get checks for $2,000 a month.
Wow.
And that could happen again.
Okay.
Or maybe under a guy named Trump.
Okay.
Anyway,
we're not advocating for anything here.
no, I wouldn't do that. But I would, he is a Republican, but he's not the same kind of Republican as
We're going down a rabbit trail.
The Bushes were.
Okay. So you could get paid for it, but you could power up to 10 houses, I think, right?
Wait, let me finish the thing about the contract. What the best thing that's available now for me and for all these solar arrays on houses and in, bank parking lots and all the places is called CNEBA, Customer Net Energy Billing Agreement. And what that is I've got 2 meters on the wall, one for incoming, one for outgoing. And that modern meters send all this stuff directly to the power company. They don't have to come read them. And I have a spreadsheet of all the kilowatts I generate every month, and it explains how much of that power is distributed to power this building, like that motor and the other things that I have here, mixers and so on. And how much goes to my house. I'm allowed to have 10 accounts on the CNEBA. And I have one for my house, and I have one for a man who lives 2 doors down, right down this road, who is my dam's tender. He gets up in the middle of the night, in the middle of winter, and does what I ask him to do on the dams, close this, open that, blah, blah, blah. And it works out pretty well. But CMP's got it rigged so that if you don't use up the kilowatts you've generated after 12 months, they disappear them.
Wow.
And
That's
keep
nice.
them and sell them to you. Oh, well.
Oh,
right?
wow.
So
Tell us about the evolution of it becoming a grist mill. Was it ever a grist mill in the past?
it was a grist mill under John Lerman.
Okay.
And I have the old grain shaker, like that grain shaker right there. But this one's 6 feet long, and it's got holes punched in it, so they could let grain come down out of a hopper like that one, and go into the grain shaker and go down into the stones. And these are the old stones with a vertical shaft, and the stones are horizontal. The bottom stone is called a bed stone. It's set on the floor with wedges underneath it, and the top stone has got a key in the shaft. And when you put the power to it, that stone turns on the other one.
Okay. And
That's
grinds.
called the runner.
Okay.
And I don't know how long that lasted, but one of the stones from his operation is out in the front yard.
Yeah, we sit on that
Yeah.
when we go swimming.
Somebody squared it, so nobody's ever going to use it again. It's like a step.
Yeah.
But quite fascinating. How did I get to be a flour mill? I didn't care if I did flour milling when I moved here. I just wanted the building with the power so that I could do whatever I wanted. And I was approached by MOFGA, Maine Organic Farmers and Garden Association. Would you please use your mill to grind flour for all of our natural food stores all around the state? And they actually gave me a $10,000 grant to help me get going.
Wow.
I paid it back. I don't mean a grant. This is not a grant. It was a loan.
Okay.
Did I say grant?
Yes, but it's okay.
I meant a loan. And we developed it, and Mofka and I both together rented a truck and went up to northern Vermont back in the 80s and bought out an organic distribution warehouse that had gone out of business. And they had all of my grinding equipment in that building, and a lot of other things that Fedco. It wasn't Mofka. It was Fedco.
Okay.
They wanted a lot of stuff from that warehouse, which they got, and I got the grinding equipment, and I've been grinding ever since. And we started out small. I got a little van and delivered in the region around mid-coast right here. And then after a couple of years, I would go to a food show in Portland in March every year, where other Maine food producers would be demonstrating their products. And I went around to them, I said, how would you like a distributor? How would you like a distributor? I had 33 people in my downline, and the building on the other side here was my warehouse.
Okay.
And I had a staff of 3 people that would manage that distribution business for 7 years. And I would go from Bar Harbor to North Conway to Boston. But being a conservative New Englander, I was real careful. I didn't go every week. I went every other week.
Okay.
And that way people could need enough stuff to make a minimum.
Okay. That makes sense. And
it worked pretty well. We did that for 7 years. And then I had I said I went to Boston, and I got picked up by bread and circus stores. I don't know if you've heard that name, but they were a wonderful early natural foods grocery store, not little store, but big grocery stores. And they had 6 or 7 around Boston. And I was at 2 of them doing the openings and doing tabletop demonstration of my pancake and muffin mixes at the openings. And that got me picked up by what is now UNFI, United Natural Foods Incorporated. It had a different name back then, but it doesn't matter. And they wanted to be my master distributor. Oh, they were going to take me all around the country.
Did they?
They did. I joined them for 4 years. I was supposed to be 5 years, but I quit because it wasn't working at all. They were making all the money, I wasn't.
Oh.
But I was going to trade shows in Tacoma and Florida and Baltimore and Anaheim, California, and showing off my products, and it was a lot of fun.
Do you think that there's a market for it now?
Natural foods?
Flour?
For flour? Yes, there is some, but people are shying away from whole grain flours somewhat over what they were 20 years ago.
Right. Now, what are like some of your visions of what someone could do with this property, like the next steward?
They could do what I did, which is to figure out what they want to do, and they've got the power to do it. It could be anything. I had Chris Wellman, who lives up by you, was a former water tender for me here, and for 3 years he used the building on the other side as his cabinet making shop. And Kaz, who is my dams tender now, is also a cabinet maker.
Wow.
And I've been trying to tempt him into buying it, but they don't want to spend that kind of money.
Yes. Now, when someone does buy this, like what goes along with stewarding this whole property? Good
question. You said the word stewarding, and that is exactly what I am as a dam steward, because these dams are going to be here forever, and the water has got to make it from the high ground to the ocean. It's going to go one way or another, either controlled or uncontrolled. And I have a long-standing 40-year relationship with a lake association up here on Alfred and Lerman called ALLP, Alfred Lake Lerman Pond Association. And we have a real good working relationship that goes back many, many years, that involves my agreeing not to drain any water out of these lakes in the summertime so that the residents can use it for recreational purposes. And so from Memorial Day to Labor Day, I very rarely draw any water from Lerman, which would come from Alfred. And that only if there happens to be enough rain to support it.
Okay.
Right? But
so someone would have to maintain those dams.
Yes, whoever buys this place has either got to stay here all winter himself or hire someone to manage the dams, whether or not you run the generator. The water's going to come through here usefully or not. And I should think they'd want to run the generator. I've got the old turbine from 1825 rebuilt, and it's still working fine. It's not a high efficiency turbine like some modern ones, like the ones you saw.
Yeah, and I know that there are grants available. I know that you're not necessarily a grants person, or it hasn't been a big interest of yours, but I did tour the Freedom Mill
Right.
recently, and I know that it was restored by, I believe, David Grassi. I don't know if I have the first name right, but he restored that, and I don't know if it was all private money or grant money that was involved in that, but this is on the National
Register of Historic Places.
Right.
His is, and so's mine.
And that does make it a candidate
for grant money.
For grant money, and that grant money could be the restoration of a very important piece of American history.
Yep.
Which, I mean, that's why I have, everyone who has grown up around this mill, I think, is in love with it. You're in love with it, and
Absolutely.
It's a very sentimental and special, like deeply special part of East Union.
And the best swimming hole in 3 counties.
Or the state, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. I mean, I grew up, I think almost every person in my family, in that Pease family, learned to swim here from my mother's generation down.
Yep.
So, and there's a lot of families that have done that. So that's a part of the stewardship too. There's many parts of it. Stewarding the relationship between the lake association, stewarding the relationship, or stewarding the dams, and also renovating this building, which needs a lot of renovation, but like externally, yes, and
it's got very good foundations and very good roofs. Those are the important things, so it won't be going downhill. Needs a lot of shingling on some of the older parts of
and it needs potentially the dam replaced.
The dam is in bad shape. I have 4 times rebuilt the dam on Lerman Pond, each time using new technology that became available to me. And it's good forever. And the dam on Alford, we restored back in the 80s with a barge and bringing in loads of rock and building it up. So it's in great shape. And this one now needs to be reconcreted.
And that's something that is a candidate for grant money. And I think, this isn't meant to be quoted, but a lot of grant money is $1 for $1. So you invest $1 of private money, and then the grant matches that. And there's probably a lot of red tape around it and how you have to use it and what you have to do. But I believe that the Freedom Mill used 2 grants that were 100% grant money.
Oh, nice.
And that was for the dam and also for the turbines.
Yeah.
So if someone wanted, because you had talked about putting another turbine on this side
right
of the mill, right?
Yeah, you bet.
And so that's one piece of it. Then as far as 2 things I want to talk about just to finish up is when someone maintains the dam, part of it is like cleaning out debris, right?
Say that again.
When someone is like the dam keeper,
yep.
Part of it is maintaining the water, but part of it's cleaning the debris, correct?
Oh, we have trash racks like this in front of the openings to the turbines and the gates on all 3 of the water impoundments. And we have to rake the trash off of them to keep it from plugging up the gates.
Okay.
Or from going into the turbine here.
Okay.
And yes, that's part of it.
And then part of the renovation needed is earthwork too, around the side of it. For
where the flood washed it away in 2023. I've got a real good friend who's an excavation contractor, lives in the next town. He happens to own a dam over there.
Oh, okay.
Fish Pond.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Bruce Melanson.
Okay.
And he's been here with his excavator and done wonders for me. When this was a stone shed, and they used to bring in blocks of granite and chisel them into, rough shapes and took them into the front building where they had a polishing machine. But all the stuff they broke off of the stones here went out the window. And there was a huge pile of granite chips and junk right there that was preventing the possibility of a turbine there, right?
Okay.
But there had been a turbine there back in the 1800s. I found pieces of it.
Wow. And
the dam has a hollow in it to place the turbine in. Mm-hmm. So it is quite reasonable technically to do so.
Okay.
And that would double as flood prevention
That's what I was going to ask you about next.
so that there would never be another flood like the one in 2023.
And that was like I mean, no one had ever seen that before. You've never
But if anybody who's paying attention to the news this year is seeing that they're going on all over the country. It could be here, right? Texas, 26 feet higher on the river. Come on.
Yeah.
Right? And what happened here that night, I watched the storm coming on my phone, and we were expecting 2 inches of rain. And I got up in the morning and it had been 7 inches of rain.
More than 3 times what you were.
Already on the ground, already in the ponds. The water was as high as the bridge. The water was almost touching my electric meter. And I had to have Central Maine Power utility truck come and take the power down so that it wouldn't.
Right. I remember.
Yep.
And then as far as the uses of this property, and I'll end with this and then I'll ask you if you have any final comments you want to make, but this could be a mixed use. It could be residential.
I think that's true. Someone would have to check with the town
code.
The code. But the building north of me right here, the second floor would be a great residence.
And it would just need, because it has a well here, but it's not really hooked up, and it needs a septic.
The well is fine. The septic is modernized with a brand new 1,000-gallon tank.
Just needs a leach field.
No, it was working before the flood.
Okay.
And there was a long 4-inch pipe going from the mill to the tank. The flood took it away.
Okay.
So it's just not connected.
Oh, it needs a new pipe.
That's all it is. It needs a new pipe.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Richard. You're very articulate and interesting to listen to.
Thank you.
What else would you like to say? Any other thoughts that you're...
How much time do I have?
I don't know, take like 10 minutes.
What I'd like to talk about is a fellow named Nikola Tesla. You know about Tesla Motor Company, and you may have heard of Nikola Tesla, but he was a Serbian engineer who came to this country from Serbia back in the same day when Edison was developing electric power, okay? And Edison was using direct current, like a flashlight battery or a car battery, all right? And that is okay, but it has limited uses. And Nikola Tesla would wake up in the middle of the night with brainstorms, and he invented alternating current, which is what's used now everywhere. I could not be generating any electricity. That light would not be on without alternating current. And it works like a 3-cylinder engine, gasoline engine, where this one fires and this one and this one. But we're talking about magnets passing around wires and pulse, 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 pulse. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that he got with a fellow named Westinghouse. Okay? You know the name Westinghouse.
Yes.
But I'm talking about the man himself. And they built the first 3-phase alternating current generating station at Niagara Falls. And now the whole world is modeled after that.
Wow.
Including this. And I would not have bought this. When the parameters that I was looking at when I was considering buying this place was location, mid-coast Maine. I'm an equal distance from Bar Harbor, North Conway, and Boston, as I said. Right? Portland, Augusta, Lewiston, Auburn, not too bad, and so on. And beyond that, I wanted to have lots of water, 700 acres of lakes, right here, at the head of the aquifer. And
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's very rare now.
Yes, it is.
For
absolutely
a mill because
there aren't.
It's a bygone.
Well, I'll get to that in a second. Let me just finish one thing, and that is that I wanted to have 3-phase power within access of the mill, and it's right on this road because Payson Road, where we are, used to be the Highway 17. And all the high power poles are here. They did not move them out onto the new 17 when they made that the highway. And that's true in Union Common too. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
That's why we
Now,
don't lose
three-phase power is that thing I was talking about, like this, the three pulses. But what's so beautiful about it is it's not single-phase power can be taken off of that, but it's pulse, stop, pulse, stop. But three-phase power is pulse, and then this one adds to it, and then this one adds to it, and then this one adds to it. So it's real powerful. 2 times the square root of 3 or 3 times the square root of 2, I'm not sure. But it's just fabulous, simple engineering that makes the modern world possible. And what else was I going to say? I forget.
You were talking about.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say that in the settling of this country, 1797, John Lerman came here, but until the late 1800s, when steam power was invented, everything that had to have mechanical power had water power. Everything had to be powered by water. Like I said, the Bates Mill and all the big mills, Saco and whatnot. And only in the late 1800s, when they engineered steam engines, they said we don't need water power anymore, and it went by the wayside.
But it's such a clean power.
Absolutely.
And Maine has like an abundance of water.
Yep.
So it's a win-win for Maine.
It is indeed. I'm not ashamed of it in any way.
Anything else you'd like to say?
I don't know what I'll do next if I retire from this place, but I am willing and I'm available to help engineer things like another turbine downstairs, the dam rebuild, etc.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Richard.
You're welcome.